Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax, let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And welcome everyone to our Business Women Australia podcast show. And I have a really special guest today who is an inspiring speaker, an author, and a marketing expert with over 35 years of industry knowledge under her belt. And she's also realised that there's been a bit of a gap in the coaching industry, and you've recognised that coaches are taught to coach, but not necessarily to be business owners. And she helps transfer coaches in their practices and bring them into thriving businesses. Being named in the top 15 coaches in Perth by Influence Digest, she has now released her own book, The Coach's Marketing Roadmap. So welcome, Cathy Smith.
Thank you, Leanne.
And we're going to get right into it today because you've had a lot going on. You've told me with your new book out, you've sold out of your first run already.
I have.
And you're now onto your second run. So like I said, I love anything that, really brings people up, and you're doing exactly that. So, props to you. It's fantastic to know. And, to see all your hard work is being pushed out and you're really helping others.
Yeah, and it's great how well the book's been received. So I knew there was a need, but it's really outdone my expectations.
It's always good news. And you're starting to work with a lot of coaches with their marketing and finding their strategies. What is it that you find that coaches they find marketing so hard?
So they don't really think about how they're going to market. So generally when they go to do marketing, they just think, oh, social media. I'll throw out a couple of social media posts, but they don't have a strategy of what those posts would like to get them to. So we get hung up on the how rather than the where. So quite often we don't think about what the destination is. We just think, oh, this particular person's doing really well on TikTok, so I need to be on TikTok. Or Instagram's doing great, so that's where I need to be. But they forget about all the back end stuff that goes into those people's strategies. And when they've thrown out a few posts and they're not getting the interaction, suddenly they think, oh, well, maybe I'm not doing it right. And they go off and they jump to the next shiny object. So when you're thinking about marketing, you need to think about where it is that you want to achieve, what your objectives are, and make sure you have a strategy to get there. And then it's not as hard as you think it will be.
I know, and that's the thing. This day and age, when there is so much social media, there is a lot of noise as to, what you should be doing, where you should be going, and everything like that. And it is, narrowing it down, like you say, in the background, narrowing it down to what you need, and trying to filter a little bit.
Absolutely.
So, and because you do a lot of work with coaches, and people don't quite understand exactly what coaches do. How can coaches help everyone?
They can't. That's the biggest misnomer, is we think that we will market and we will help everyone. And what happens then is our message is so vanilla that we've got no idea of who the coach is, what they do, or who they can help. So it sounds counterintuitive, but doing the opposite way, picking one person that you can help and then expanding that to 2, 3, 4, that actually will get you a lot further. Because yourself when you've heard different things, you go, yes, that really resonates with me. I love the way Leanne sounds, or I don't. And that's just as good, because you don't want to be marketing to people that are never going to use your services. Now, not everybody's going to use them straight away, but if they're at least interested, then being in your ecosystem is great. But if they've got absolutely no interest in you, then getting them out as quickly as possible means that you can talk to the people that you need to talk to and the people that you can help. So if you think of the one person that you can help the best, quite often you hear them called the avatar. So if you think of that person and think, okay, that even name them makes it easier to be talking to them. So where do they live? What do they do? What type of person is it? What's their demographics? How does your specific thing help them? So it might be a case of it's an age group or a location or a type of people. So for me, I help newly certified coaches to turn their marketing passion into a thriving business. So immediately you go, I'm not newly certified. I'm not a coach. I'm just doing it as a hobby. So all of those people self-select. Or you go, yes, that's me. I really need to talk to Cathy. And it makes your message so much clearer and easier for people to understand.
I love that. Keeping it simple.
We overcomplicate it way too much.
I'm renowned for overcomplicating everything I do. So, but we talk about their stories, and why is having their stories such a powerful tool for them?
So stories, how we've communicated for years. Even before we had the written word, we had story. So what is one of the things that we love to do? As a community, we all like to hear about movies, books, and even now with TikTok. That's why TikTok is so engaging for people, because it's little snippets of stories. So by allowing people into our story, into our narrative, and generally if you can create it so that it includes them, the person that you're talking to, once again, why we need to be speaking to one person and not everybody, if you can bring that into your story, then people can go, yes, that's me, or it could be me, or it's nearly me. And then that brings you in and makes it really meaningful for people. And the other thing with stories is their emotive. They bring in emotions. So they make us cry, they make us laugh, they make us connect. And connection is how people buy. So stories are really, really powerful. And they can be a little bit of your personal story, or they can be just like what you're doing during the day. It might be you're out dog walking and you saw something, or it might be that the crows won't be quiet while you're trying to do a Facebook Live. So you can tell people little stories about that. And for the people that are listening to this as audio only, Leanne's laughing because that's something that's already connected with her. So the stories are what make us human and make us different.
And I think that's so important for people to understand, because we're seeing a shift in mentality at the moment where, whenever we did business, it was strong, connection to KPIs, to, we're reaching these targets, we are hitting these goals. But as we're watching businesses evolve at the moment, we're connecting, we're feeling with one another. We build that rapport more with the people than any numbers that really go out. So, hearing stories, it's such an essential thing of life.
It is. And we used to have to be two people. We used to have to be the person at work and the private person. And what happened with a lot of people was they were two completely different people. And then you would meet somebody from work in a private situation and you didn't know how to act, because were you the work person or were you the private person? But now, particularly with what's happened in the world over the last few years, and now with AI and everybody wanting that authentic connection, stories is how we can get that and how we can get it quickly. So you hear a story about somebody and you go, oh yeah, somebody I knew was like that, or yeah, that's what my son did, or my brother did, or my this that did. And it gives you that immediate connection. It also gives you a bit of a talking point, so you don't have to be asking what they had for breakfast or what's the weather. You've got that icebreaker immediately because the stories bring us in.
And on a side note, do you think, because we love a good story, but do you think that people can also understand that maybe they share too many stories?
Depends on the content of your story, depends on you as a person, and it depends on your brand. So I always say the dirty laundry belongs in the laundry, not on Facebook or any of the other social medias. So if you're happy to tell that story to your grandmother in the middle of a shopping centre at the top of your voice, then I think there's a place for it. But if you're worried about what somebody might think or what your child might think when they grow up, or if your grandmother reads it, something like that, then no, definitely not. So, yeah, people do overshare, and for some people's brands, that's fine. But for most of us, no, definitely not. So if you've got the slightest bit of doubt about whether you're happy to have that shared, whether you want to delete it, and remember, when you delete things off social media, that doesn't mean it's gone forever. Somebody could have taken a snapshot. Quite often it can be recovered, all of that sort of thing. So if you're worried at all, don't put it on there in the first place. So yes, just run it through your filter. If you're happy with that, it suits your brand, it suits your personality, go for it. But yeah, just filter it first.
Filter first. I think that's actually just a good life lesson in general. So, when we're talking about the coaches, and you've helped guide a lot of them now, how do you think they find their ideal clients?
So sometimes it can be a bit of trial and error. Sometimes you just have to pick something and run with it and see how it goes. And whether you believe in God, the universe, or whatever power you want to put there, that will generally guide you. So when I did my coaching, I had 35 years marketing background, and I went, I'm not doing marketing coaching, because I wanted to do pure coaching. I wanted people to be able to be coached and help them to find their own solutions. I didn't want to be doing the step-by-step, here, I'll tell you how to market. And I went away and I did something else for a year, and that was great, lots of fun. But I just had coaches coming up to me all the time saying, oh, I've done my coaching, but now I can't make a business out of it. I've come from corporate where somebody else used to do it. Now I can't get it sorted. I don't know what my first step is. So the universe told me that I needed to go back and help new coaches. And a lot of coaches find that. Sometimes it can be your experience, what you've done in maybe corporate life, what has happened to you. So quite often you'll find that burnout coaches have had burnout. Weight loss coaches have been larger in size and been able to get their weight down. So quite often it's a case of looking at your skill sets, looking at what you'd like to do, who you'd like to talk to. So I have 2 children, and when I was doing marketing when my daughter was in kindy, people said, oh, you should get into the mumpreneur space, and that's where you are. You should be doing that. And it wasn't something I wanted to do, because I'd spent a lot of time building up my business, and I didn't want to be in that space. Nothing wrong with that space. It just wasn't for me. So it's a case of thinking about what your experience is, but is that somewhere that you want to go? Is that somewhere that you want to live and breathe and think about and have that 2 o'clock moment when you go, ping, I've got this fantastic idea for that. If that space is not where you want to go, then maybe it's not where you should be thinking about as your niche. And be adaptable, but don't be chopping and changing every 5 minutes. So pick something, hang on to it for 6 months, then you can pivot if you'd like to. But if you're a marketing coach one day and you're a weight loss coach the next day and you're a general life coach and, then it's really hard for people to understand what your message is. And we were talking of that before we got on camera, was exactly that. There's so much noise out there, so much content. So you need to pick a lane and stay in it. Try to stay in it for 6 months, and then if it resonates, go from there. If it doesn't, then maybe pivot a bit, but don't swap and change every 2 minutes, or nobody will understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so what would you say? So, someone who's become a coach, great, they've got the qualification, and they've created their avatar. What would you suggest for them to be the next step for them to take?
So once you've decided on, first of all, it's probably easy to do your niche, then your avatar, because you might decide that you want to coach a specific type of person, but you actually find out that they don't have the problem that you're wanting to help them with. So if you do your niche first, so work out what that problem is that your solution can solve. So just think of 1 or 2 problems and be very clear on what the problem is for the person that you're going to be helping. not necessarily the way you would say it, because you really need to be talking in their language. And you find often that technical coaches in the beginning, they'll talk too much jargon because that's what they think their people need. But you've got to get those people first. So make sure that you're talking in their language. So once you've got your niche, then you've got your avatar, then you need to be really honing in your message to hit those pain points and show the person that you're the solution. So you're the guide, you're the one that's going to help them, not necessarily push them one way or the other, but be able to show them that pathway of where they can go.
And then the next step is also to talk to a professional who might know how to help you reach that audience.
Indeed. But there's a lot of free information out there. And if you don't have the funds to do it, then quite often starting free is really good. The biggest thing you've got to be careful is the shiny objects. So you're doing this on one moment, you're doing something else. So as we talked about in the beginning, go back to the strategy, work out what your objective is and what you're trying to do. And we can't be doing everything. So once you do have the funds, then quite often getting a professional is really helpful, but make sure that that professional is going to help you. They're not just doing their course for their sake. It's actually going to help you and what you want to achieve.
And I think that's really important to touch on too, because, we see so many people who will go into a business and they all will go into a new business. And when you're trying to do it all, you do reach to that point where you do burn out.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't quite go further. So to be able to recognize, you get to a point where you need someone else to help make your dream a reality is a really important thing for people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to see the leaves if you're just standing under the tree. So having somebody look from the outside can be really important. The other thing is, would you pay somebody to train to work out how to do something? So when in my other business, I build websites. So we often say, would you pay somebody to learn how to build a website? Would you pay somebody whatever your hourly rate is to do it very badly, to not allocate the time, to not be able to fulfill that project? And of course we wouldn't pay, if say your hourly rate's $150, we wouldn't pay somebody $150 to learn how to do that. But that's what we're doing for ourselves. So we're learning a skill that it's probably out of our genius. It's something that we don't really want to do, and it's stopping us doing what we should be doing. So a really good thing is to have a coach that you can bounce ideas off and talk to, and they can perhaps look from the outside, and then think of those things that are not really in your skill set. So when I started my business, the first thing I did was got a bookkeeper, because yes, I can do the numbers and yes, I can do the inputting and everything, but it's not something I want to do. So I used to spend 4 weeks of my summer holidays doing it. The first bookkeeper I got in, I gave them a shoebox and I said to them, I think this is going to be about a week's work. It took me 2 weeks, but I thought a week, I'll cut it down a week. After about 4 hours, the lady came back to me and she said, where's the rest of it? And I went, what do you mean, where's the rest of it? She was so much more skilled at doing it. She loved doing it. She knew the system. She organised it all, and it was her genius. Now, for me to spend 4 weeks on my summer holidays doing it, absolute total waste of time. For me to pay her for 4 hours to do it, bingo, perfect time.
And when you work out the financial difference between what 4 weeks of your time would cost to someone else's 4 hours, initially the cost can be scary. But when you've got a professional doing the work, realizing how much that cost can actually come down significantly.
Indeed. And how much BDM you could be doing, how much business development and bringing in those clients you could be doing in that same amount of time. And the other thing is, professionals, that's their area. So if that's not an area you play in, you might miss things. And particularly in the financial realms and tax and all of that, we've got to make sure that we are doing that properly, that we are putting that money away, etc. And if that's not your area, a bookkeeper might say, hey, where's your GST money, or where's your tax money? And then that might save you a whole heap of time and angst when you get that big bill that you haven't actually got the money put away for as well.
100%. And finally, we're coming to time, but the most important question today is, how can people find your fantastic book, The Coach's Marketing Roadmap?
Indeed. So they can buy the paperback copy from my website, which is cathysmith.com.au. It will be going to Amazon. It's not there at the moment. So the best place to go to is the website, cathysmith.com.au.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for giving your time up to be with me today.
Wonderful opportunity, and great always to be a guest. Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks, Cathy. And we thank you, everyone. Make sure you log in and subscribe to all of our fantastic broadcasting channels like Apple and Spotify, and keep an eye on Amazon for Cathy's book coming out. Bye.
Bye.